Today's date is September 22nd, 2015, and today we'll be going over the weekly tournament wrap-up, rumors regarding a possible Rocket League movie, the next DLC package, questions with the infamous Tamakath, and tons more, all here on The Tip-Off. Good evening, Carballers. I'm Marc, Testcycle Booster, and I'm here to present yet another episode of The Tip-Off, an online news broadcast for the Rocket League game brought to you by the National Carball Association, a lighthearted website and YouTube channel aimed at fans of the game. We begin our show with our weekly tournament wrap-up. Gfinity kicked off its 3v3 European tourney in style last week on the 18th. The games were fast-paced and full of energy. Fourth place was gobbled up by the Fairy Rockets, whilst High Octane held tightly onto their third place finish. The finals match between Swarm Gaming and Teamus Weemus was quite the show. Every game was intense and showed exactly why I'm unable to play this game at a pro level. It requires far, far too much skill. Swarm Gaming was able to edge out the series 4-2. Congratulations to Swarm Gaming for taking first and to all the teams for their spectacular performance. I look forward to seeing the next series on the 25th. Go4Rocket League, hosted by ESL, had their 8th Cup on Sunday, September 20th, and boy was it rocket-fueled. On the North American front, we had good matches throughout the entire day. After slashing through the brackets, we were left with just 4 teams: Perfect Storm, Double Tap, Titanium Ricochet, and Cosmic Aftershock. The semifinals were a glorious display of play, with Cosmic Aftershock and Titanium Ricochet eventually becoming the victors and moving on to the finals. The third place match, however, was still full of intensity, with Double Tap eventually withering that Perfect Storm. The finals match had Cosmic Aftershock spreading their wings like a phoenix and rising from the ashes away from Team Ricochet, giving Cosmic Aftershock the first place prize. So congratulations, Cosmic, and all the teams for competing and for their stellar performance. Crossing the Atlantic into Europe, we saw an even bigger tournament, with many more teams seeking to be called number 1. However, we were eventually left with just 4 teams, just like that in the NA bracket. Supersonic Stars, Team Shazoo, Flipside Tactics, and Swarm Gaming all looked to become the best team in Europe. But it was Swarm Gaming and Flipside who were eventually sent on to the finals. In the bronze medal match, we watched Supersonic Stars outscore Team Shazoo and take home that third place finish. In our first and second place match, we watched Flipside shut down the Swarm once again. Flipside was able to hold on to their first place spot. So congratulations, Flipside, and all the teams for their amazing play. Look forward to seeing all the matches again this Sunday, September 27th, over on ESL. Last week, we failed to go over the winners of the MLG Weekly Tournament as the games pushed into our viewing time. I apologize. So let us travel back in time to the 15th of September. Flipside Tactics and Swarm Gaming went up against each other on the 15th of September last week. And they brought us to the entire distance to a 3-3 split, whilst Mad Magic toppled Perfect Storm in a 4-2 series. This brings us to today's games, September 22nd, where Kings of Urban took on Swarm Gaming. Supersonic Stars met up against Team Shazoo, and then we saw Supersonic Stars back on the stage for a doubleheader against Air Force 2. Swarm Gaming was able to humble Kings of Urban in a 5-1 series. Team Shazoo went Mach speed to pull ahead of Supersonic Stars in a 4-2 series, and finally, Supersonic Stars were able to get their revenge for their earlier game and take it out on Air Force 2, showing up with an impressive 6-0 series. Congratulations again to all our teams and winners, and looking forward to see the next set of MLG games tomorrow, September 23rd. October can't come soon enough. Not only will I be pillaging houses for candy and staring at all the cuties in their skimpy outfits during Halloween, but we'll also be delving into the next Rocket League DLC dubbed Revenge of the Battle Cars. In it, we'll see the return of two supersonic, acrobatic, rocket-powered battle cars, Zippy and Scarab. I don't know why that cracks me up every time I say it, but it does. We'll also see 12 new decals, 6 for each of the new cars, 3 new paint types, 2 new wheels based off the new cars, 2 new rocket boosts, 4 new toppers, 2 new antennas, and 5 new trophies and achievements. Launching alongside of that DLC is a free update that will give players access to the last 2 regulation-style maps for a while. These are Urban Station Night and Utopia Coliseum Dusk. Can't wait to see what sort of new maps Psyonix has in store for us after those. Players, rejoice! For no longer will you be at the mercy of the ELO system, for Psyonix is actively looking into fixing the current issues it has. Psyonix has already made quite a few changes that have all the players shouting, "What a save! Thanks!" Some of these changes include reseeding players based off their original preseason MMR. This should create more well-balanced games right off the start and keep players from being matched far out of their skill level. There was also changes made to keep MMR from going stagnant, and also some of the mathematics behind the scene are being reworked. Overall, it should create a more enjoyable experience for all ranked players. Psyonix's very own VP of Marketing, Jeremy Dunham, went on the record with MCVUK.com to tell them about possible TV, movie, and toy line pitches. Jeremy makes it clear that all of these things are simply in discussion, and Psyonix wants to make sure everything stays true to the game. I personally think so long as these things are done properly, they could be a very cool addition and create for some really interesting media. Look forward to seeing how these talks continue to shape up, and we'll be sure to report on them as soon as they take form. Tamakath over at the Psyonix official forum has released a spreadsheet with all his findings on vehicle stats. In it, he goes over hitbox height and width, maneuvering stats, and even kickoff stats. Definitely worth a look, especially if you're attempting to min-max your Rocket League experience. And that actually brings us to tonight's overtime interview with Tamakath. Thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with us today, Tamakath. How are you?
No problem. I'm not doing too bad. Yourself?
I'm not too bad. Thank you so much for asking. All right, so we've got to jump into this, and I've got the burning question that everyone wants to know. Which car are you currently using?
Right now, I've swapped between a few of them, but at the moment, it's the Hotshot that I'm using.
The Hotshot. And is that because of how well it's done in your stats?
It wasn't at first. I didn't like it at the beginning because I didn't like the general aesthetics of it. But playing around with all the different vehicles, I found that vehicles that performed better for maneuvering, like the Dominus, the Breakout, and of course the Hotshot, are the ones that I tended to prefer going to. And the more I played around with it, the more I came to like the way the car looked. So I just picked that one. Finding out
Yeah.
that it had good stats was just a bonus.
Just the cherry on top, as they say. So is there a car that you'd suggest not using?
Uh, in general, I'd probably say that if there is one that I would recommend not to use, it would be the Merc, simply because of the power slide and generally how it turns. But even then, if you know how to handle the power slide and either do it well ahead of time or just take the time to turn around, it can still be good.
Right. So actually, that kind of brings me into something that I just thought of. Would you say that these stats are they kind of make or break, or do they kind of just help fit you into a certain play style that you might be used to? As a player, should the players really look at these stats and think, oh, that is a huge OP advantage, or is it more of just a subtle change, kind of to change the play style?
I don't think it really makes that much of a difference when playing. Obviously, there are certain vehicles that can perform better than others, but in general, it's more of knowing where your strengths and weaknesses are. Like taking, for example, something like the Sweet Tooth, or the Merc, how they have a really high hitbox, so it's really good for trying to block shots, but at the same time, they tend to have lower maneuvering stats. So if you're trying to use those vehicles, it might be a little better defensive rather than offensive. But it's not like one person using the sweet tooth and like myself using the hot shot. It's not like it's going to be everyone has to use the OP vehicle or else
Right.
they're terrible.
Right. Gotcha. Okay, so Tamakath, what started you on this whole stats process, and did you plan on finding these, any drastic results when you first went into it?
What started me on it was just the fact that Psionics themselves had mentioned that other than maybe a few hitbox differences, that all the vehicles would handle the exact same.
Hmm.
And going through the different vehicles, I happened on the Merc and doing a power slide where any other vehicle does at least 180, usually around 210, 220 degree turns, and the Merc would barely go over 90 degrees when doing a power slide. And
Hmm.
just that major difference led me to try other things, like to try how much they turn, to try if they have the same max speed, the same acceleration, the same jump height. And I was actually
Right.
surprised that almost everything that have major differences, especially in the maneuvering, it's
Hmm.
mostly due to how they handle the physics with the axle width and how far away they're finding the back wheels are.
Gotcha. Interesting. Interesting. So, with all these results, coming in from your testing, do you believe Psionics should normalize the stats on all the cars?
I don't think it'd be necessary to normalize them all, like to put them all the same across the board. I think
Hmm.
it's nice to have some little differences, especially since, as I mentioned earlier, with the exception of the Merc with the power slide specifically, most of the differences aren't major that they would
Right.
have a huge impact on gameplay.
Gotcha.
All I would prefer is if they wouldn't normalize it and keep it the same, at least do like some other racing games and actually have the stats being shown, even if it's just like get an A, B, or C ranking for size or maneuverability or handling or whatever.
Right. Right. Definitely. Yeah. Um, that it would be nice to be able to kind of pick based off some sort of chart, or graph with the stats on it. So let's get behind the mask. So tell us a bit about yourself, Tamakath. Is working in the lab something that you tend to do for other games as well, or?
Well, for myself as a job, I'm a quality assurance tester,
Okay.
and I've done similar things to this for other games as well. Just mostly it's just been just personal hobby of mine. I'll play a game, I'll notice in Unreal Tournament, for example, in one of the levels, I found a way to get outside of the level consistently. So just because I had my education was in game design and game programming. So after I found that, I basically went through all the different levels to try and find out if they designed their level terrain properly or if they missed anything. Just more of a curiosity than anything.
Gotcha, gotcha. So let me ask you this: you mentioned kind of going out of bounds in Unreal Tournament, at least. Um, are you into speedrunning at all? Do you follow that scene? Because they tend to, be very interested in that same sort of stuff as well.
Oh yeah, I'm very much into speedrunning, especially specifically going through some of the older Super Nintendo games like Super Metroid or Metroid Prime is a game that just for the out of bounds is something that I wanted to get into, but
Awesome.
never did so far.
Awesome, awesome. Well, you and I will have to talk about that more off the show. I'm going to have to go ahead and wrap up this interview now. Tamaketh, I want to thank you again for joining us. It's been a pleasure learning about you, and thank you so much for the work that you've done for the game as well and for the community.
No problem. Expect to see more when the Scarab and the Zippy come out.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. I should have asked you about that. You do plan on doing those as well?
That and any other DLC that comes out that I'll be getting my hands on every DLC that comes out for the game since I got it during the PSN Plus free week. So all the
Perfect.
DLC, I'll cover every vehicle for everything that I have.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, thank you again for your work, and thank you again for joining us, Tamaketh. I hope you have a wonderful night.
You too.
Take care.
Thanks. Take care.
Well, Carballers, that about does it for September 22nd, 2015, our first episode of the show, since last episode was a pilot and dubbed episode 1/2 or something like that, semantics. Be sure to tweet at the National Carball Association with any comments or criticism at National Carball, or directly at me at Testcycle TV. Make sure you let us know what you think of the format and things you'd like to see changed and worked on. It is you who keeps us coming back. Again, I'm Marc Testcycle Booster, and this was The Tip-Off, brought to you by the National Carball Association, the only Rocket League newscast that features an anchor with a porn stash. I'll see you again next Tuesday, September 29th at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern. Take care and stay classy.